I don't know if we ever ended up with an announcement, so I don't know if we'll get people, but I'll jump in. At least I'll post on short shifts.
Okay.
At live shows. I'm gonna have to get this little critter out of here. One sec.
Sounds good.
You gotta stay out. You're too cute. Okay. Can I create an event? Yeah, I can. Should have done this a minute ago, but oh well. Still getting kind of
used to everything. Back in the groove.
Yep. Well, and we've got kind of a new, different setup here, so it's definitely a little different. All right. And then let's see. Yeah, we can see comments and post comments here too. Okay. Make sure I got everything going. I got my paper for keeping track. All right. Ready?
Ready.
Awesome. Can't wait. It's going to be a blast. Okay, we started at 2:45. What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Karlsson. I'm Louis Ezekiel. So happy to have my first official episode here of Season 6. And joining me tonight, my pal and yours, Elizabeth of Tier 5 Middleton in the Cupful, late of the Cupful Gazette. Elizabeth, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. You know, I'm having a decent bounce back fantasy night. I'm suffering the same problem that I've had all season, which is I've got a big bunch of assists and I have nothing to show for my 19 shots while my opponent has 2 goals on 7. So a little frustrated from that, but overall it's going pretty good, all things considered. The biggest thing, no additional injuries tonight, which I simply can't afford to have. My IR is already overflowing, unfortunately.
That's usually how I start the season. So knock on wood, I'm not starting the season that way this year, and hopefully all stays well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're not a touchwood sayer the way that Brian is. That always drives me nuts.
Yeah. You got to knock on the wood.
Yes, I think so too. It's got to be a little more forceful. Before we get started here, it's kind of fun. So these Tuesday shows are going to be kind of a rotating cast, and hopefully we'll get lots of interesting and new voices on, and maybe we'll bring some folks back for another round as well. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's your team? Where did you get to pick in the Cupful this season? Who's your best pick for your best performing pick so far?
All right. Well, I got to draft 3rd, so that was nice. I've had the first pick the last 2 years, so I don't want to say I was stuck with McDavid, but I had to take him, and it just wasn't working for me. So I'm excited to try something new this year with my 3rd round draft pick, forced upon me with Austin Matthews. So couldn't go wrong there, but you had to take them. My picks this year have been pretty solid so far, so good. I'm really happy with an Anthony Beauvillier stream that I had. Got me 14 points in those first two games. He's letting me down now, but we'll focus on the positive. The first two games he did good, and my team name is just Elizawitch because I'm boring. I don't like changing my Discord name all the time, so I keep it easy.
For sure. That makes sense. I finally found a name that I think I can settle on like year after year instead of trying to change it all the time. So, and so picking McDavid, was that fun or stressful as an Oilers fan?
Super stressful because you're watching him play. And I mean, last year we started with that terrible losing streak. And so not only was my team that I cheer for doing bad, but my fantasy team was not doing well either. So it was a rough start to the season for me last year. Ended well though.
Yeah, that can compound some of the pain there, I suppose, if the team that you're relying on is also letting you down in all phases of the game, so to speak. Um,
Yes.
one
I
more
usually
question
try
for
to
you.
avoid Oilers just because of
Oh yeah,
that. So
makes
tip for all
sense.
my opponents.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? I think I avoided Red Wings in the same way, especially early in my fantasy career. One more question here before we get into the good stuff here. Is there anything that you feel like you have learned in the early goings of the season here?
Ooh, I mean, I'm starting out strong with a win in week one. That's a first for me since I started playing in the Cupful many moons ago. And so I think I finally figured out the magic. Hopefully I can keep with it. Is just like hold steady, trust your streams. Don't be freaking out in the first week. It's a small sample size. But in a few days, if I'm losing, I might change my tune.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. I'm really trying to live by this advice, but I'm not successfully doing it so well. Just with all the injuries again. If I can indulge in just a moment, I currently have Sean Dursey, JJ Paterka, Drew Doughty, Alex Barkov, and Joel Eriksson Ek on my IR. So my streaming strategy, the thing I want to do most is have moves left at the end of the week to start preparing for the week that follows. I just got crushed in week one. And even still, I had that week one kind of desire to try and be competitive, and it just didn't get me anywhere. And so I swore that I would be more patient, yet here I am on Tuesday. All four of my moves are gone. I'm counting on returning players to act as my free agent ads later in the week here. So I hope it works, but oh boy, it has been a tough start here.
You should
All
get
right.
lucky with a few of those. A few of those should hopefully be back soon.
Yeah, so we'll talk about a couple of them that are kind of our incoming outjuries here. But I was hoping for Jeek today. I was in the weird situation of having not enough centers for once. But I picked up Kent Johnson, and he got a shorthanded assist. So I appreciate that. Good Michigan boy. All right, let's get into things here. I think the biggest piece of news that we got to talk about that has happened since the Sunday show was that absolute banger of an 8-7 Ottawa victory over LA in overtime. Sham said the game was drunk. Like no one could, it was just haymaker after haymaker, all homers, no bunts, just hit dingers. So there's a lot to talk about from this game, and we're not even going to be able to cover everything. But I thought I'd start with the goalies. We've got Darcy Kemper, who, despite taking the loss, did have the better overall save percentage, 33 saves with 8 goals against for an 805 save percentage. -4 goals saved above average, so not really performing that well, not stopping the shots that he should be stopping. And before I guess we talk about whether we have some concerns there, we also saw the two we saw Forsberg and Sogard both play for the Sens. Forsberg only made 6 saves and allowed 3 goals against for a 667 save percentage and -2.13 goals saved above average. Sogard came in relief after Forsberg left with an injury, 4 goals against, 13 saves, a 765 save percentage, and a -2.35 goals saved above average. So everybody's coming in at a pretty crummy save percentage. Both teams at about -4 goals saved above average. Is this just an early season blip? Is this, you were talking about not overreacting? This is one of our let's not overreact too much to what we saw here situations, right? Or is there something that we should be concerned about fundamentally with these teams?
I mean, when it comes to Ottawa, it's Allmark who's going to be in that net most of the time. I think he's going to get the 50, 60 games we expect him to get, assuming this muscle strain, it doesn't keep him out long term, and hopefully he's back Thursday. Ottawa should be fine. I don't think that we need to worry too much about Forsberg and Sogard if they're not going to be staying kind of in that 50-50 split for very long. But I mean, it is concerning when we're seeing goals, that many goals on so few saves.
Yeah. No, well, hold on. We can do it again. We can do it again. Nope, that's okay. We're at what, 10:35? So just start again from the bit about
Forsberg and Sogard.
The bit about Forsberg and Sogard being, hopefully we won't see them much.
Yeah. When it comes to Forsberg and Sogard, though, I don't think we need to worry too much. We're not going to see too many games out of them, assuming, like I said, Allmark takes on that bulk of the starts, which is what they signed him there to do. It's kind of expected that's what he's going to do. And truly, these are your backup goalies for a reason. I can't imagine too many people are holding them for fantasy relevance. They probably picked them up for the one game and learned their lesson.
Yeah, this is the streaming goalies in the early stages has definitely been a dangerous game. A little bit of a hot potato with a live grenade at times. A bit worrisome, I think, obviously, that Forsberg went out with injury. If Ullmark doesn't come back quick, that might mean Sogard gets a start or two. Maybe we give him a little bit of a break because, he did not expect to start and came into this ridiculous game kind of unprepared and, may have just been swept up in the chaos. So, yeah, I'm not going to worry too much about the Ottawa goalies. It is a little bit concerning for Kemper. But again, I think that I would chalk it up to a super weird game. And let's see, once we get a little bit of a larger sample size with him, we know that the Kings can play responsible defensively. We'll just see if they're going to choose to. We did hear over the summer that they were sort of emphasizing a more aggressive forecheck. And maybe we'll see that ends up being something that does maybe hurt them a little bit defensively. As far as our scorers went, we had quite a few members of the 3-point club. We have Josh Norris in there, Drake Batherson, who, his owners were maybe starting to get a little nervous. Tim Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, Brant Clark, Andrei Kopitar. So great for them. I wanted to focus on Kopitar a little bit just because he's off to a killer start with 6 points in 3 games. But he is in the Seamus Casey club. We'll get to him in a little bit. But 3 goals on 4 shots on the season. Are we thrilled for Kopi? Are we worried about the fact that he has had no shots in the last 2 games? That is a bit concerning there. Should we just be really excited for where we drafted Kopi and what we're getting for him? Or should we maybe be looking for a trade partner? I looked in my Cupful draft and I went a couple rounds ahead of where Kopitar was taken. And I see players like Zuccarello, Cousins, Elias Lindholm. Are any of those names something that you would be interested in potentially flipping a Kopitar for? Or is this line 1, power play 1, mainstay going to stick to your roster if you have him?
Yeah, I mean, if you grabbed Kopitar, you grabbed him probably a little bit later. You kind of knew what you were going to get with him, and this was pretty good. But if he's not getting those shots, you kind of have to let him go. I would look at, maybe you're right, the Lindholm owner, if they're interested in a trade. I think there's a little bit more interest there, a little bit more excitement around him. He might have a couple of games that really wow you. That would be worth a little bit more. But again, we're early in the season, so I don't hold it against anybody who wants to hold on to their players because they have some draft attachment to them, especially those middle guys. But if you drafted them really late, this might be the time to say, move on.
Yeah, maybe we can push out there and try to find some kind of upgrade. Cool. We want to mention one other player. participating in this game, and he did manage to score. So credit where it's due. We managed to get a point out of the many, many, many that were available. But Claude Giroux managed to end his scoreless drought in Game 3. But he's another guy who's worrying me with his shots. He's only got 3 shots in 3 games. He's got power play time. There are these, sort of exciting younger players. Josh Norris is healthy for now. Is this going to be is Giroux a player who is concerned for you? Are you holding on to him? Is he someone who, could be potentially a drop?
Yeah, I mean, I actually have him in one of my leagues. So I benched somebody to play him on Saturday for his cardio session. Not too happy about that and how it turned out for me, but he's turning it around with the power play goal on Monday there. Again, we've got that small sample size. It's so hard to say. I haven't dropped him yet, but he's on extremely thin ice with me because we can't be having cardio sessions once a week. It's just not helpful to me, especially on a Saturday.
Yeah, I think as part of kind of Operation Don't Panic About Things in general, we don't want to drop too many players this early. Give them a chance to kind of find some success. But you would have hoped that in an 8-goal game, he could have maybe, lucked into a couple assists there. If he's not going to be shooting all that much, if he is deferring to the pass mostly. So,
Exactly.
A little bit of concern there. Speaking of some of these older guys, we talked about Kopitar earlier. We've talked about Giroux, obviously, on the colder side, but our Gray Wolves are howling a little bit here. In addition to Kopitar's success, Ovechkin has 3 assists and 5 shots in about a game and a half here. Actually, I think that game is just about wrapped up. I think there were some people who looked at him getting an assist and no shots in Game 1 and were having terrible flashbacks of last year. So to see him get 6 shots and 6 hits in tonight's game, even if he didn't convert, I think is definitely a bit of a relief for those people who went through the OV experience last year. Evgeny Malkin with a goal and 6 assists and 6 shots through 4 games. These older players that, I think some people sort of expected to be on their downswing, showing us some things. Any thoughts on these early guys? I think mostly we're just giving them high fives here for being successful at a relatively advanced age, yet still younger than me.
Right? I mean, Ovechkin told us what he was going to do. He told us what he wants to do with his career. I don't think we should doubt him. He is going out there with a purpose still. So let's see what he can do with it. Malkin, 7 points in 4 games. That's an extremely hot start to the season. I'm impressed, really. And I like his line there with Raquel and Bunting. It's going really well. I did stream in Raquel as well because I wanted to get in on that excitement. So I'm hoping it continues personally.
Yeah, and if that power play can be better than nothing the way it was last year, I think that could indicate, a climb in points for all of the participants on that power play there. So pretty nice. But one guy who's missing out on the action a little bit is Sidney Crosby. Through 4 games, 3 assists, 9 shots on goal. That's not exactly what you're hoping to see. I had really wanted Crosby and failed to grab him ultimately. Maybe I dodged a little bit of a bullet here. Are we worried? Or is this just, again, small sample size here? There's not a lot of actionable things that you can do here, right? Like no one's dropping him. We're not going to trade him for peanuts. I guess I'm just trying to gauge our level of concern.
I would say we should be a little bit concerned. We're talking about 6 goals in a game and he's not out there getting any points off those goals. That's a big drop. We've already said I'm an Oilers fan, so I have to be fair and say McDavid's having the same problem. But when nobody on the Oilers scores, that spotlight's a little bit bigger. So He is not getting quite the shade that Crosby is for that. But, we do kind of expect them to have a little bit more kind of coming into that season. They're the leaders on these teams for a reason, and we want to see that. But right now, I do have to say both McDavid, Draisaitl also having the same problem to start the season.
Yeah, that's true. Some surprising struggles here early on. All right, let's head over into some injuries and outries then. Mostly, obviously, here early on, focusing on the injuries, but we do have a couple outries kind of on the horizon here, if not immediate. First off, we got to go to Colorado, where we've seen quite a bit of injury news. The defense has been struggling. We've had players out for a game or two there. Jonathan Drouin, though, is looking at a quote unquote longer timeline, according to Coach Bednar. So I don't know. We don't know exactly what that means. There's going to be some testing, and he has ruled him out for Wednesday. But I would imagine Wednesday plus should be the baseline expectation. I don't think this is going to be something where, he gets checked out and he's right back in the mix shortly thereafter. So in his absence, we've seen Ross Colton elevated to line one and power play one. Hasn't done a ton with it yet necessarily, but running that Streamagami, that's a pretty nice setup. It seems like the guy who has really shouldered some additional burden here with some absences has been Casey Middlestat. He's been a beast for the Avs so far. He's scored in every game. He's taken 8 shots over 3 games. His lowest ice time so far was 19 minutes and 47 seconds. This is a guy, I know we did this whole pause the pod thing with the mega show. But this is a guy that I would seriously run out and look at and do it soon. He's pretty widely available in Yahoo leagues, but just today he went from 18% to 27% rostered. So that window might be starting to close. Obviously, the great schedule this week. Pretty into Casey Middlestat here, as long as he's going to be playing those kind of big minutes, even though Miles Wood and Callum Ritchie are his wingers. Of course, my opponent streamed Ritchie and he scored, so no big surprise there. That should have been expected. And I guess all of this to say, what the heck is going on with these goalies in Colorado? They are really dropping the ball. I know we won't stay on this too long because I know the mega show talked about Georgiev a fair amount too, but how worried should we be? I know he has hit the waiver wire in a couple leagues, which seems wild and seems early.
It does seem wild and early, but I think it's the right call. We're seeing lots of things happening in Colorado that just don't pose the good news that we want to hear for a goalie, right? Now we've got Devin Toews out as well with the lower body injury. So, there's a couple of pieces there that are just not coming together for them through the defense and through the goalies. Like Georgiev's just not starting out strong. It's going to get into his head. And I'm kind of with the people dropping them. I don't have a long leash with a lot of goalies, so I would be letting them go and streaming somebody in, looking for those back-to-backs, looking for the Streamagami days, things like that.
Yeah, I don't mind carrying just one goalie on my roster if that's kind of what is necessary. I think that having, especially if it's somebody who's not necessarily going to start every game, that's a lot of drag on your roster, especially in a week where teams like Colorado and Pittsburgh, you can get on all those off nights. So yeah, I think I'm with you that having a shorter leash on your goalies is not a bad idea, because they can be good options to allow you to fill out your roster in other places with people who are guaranteed to not give you negative points. They might not get you a ton, but they're not going to hurt you the way
exactly.
the way that
and we're seeing so many young people getting a chance to show off now in Colorado that taking a couple gambles this week is definitely worth it with the off days all week. So it's good for us fantasy managers in a way. Bad for the players, good for us.
Gives you an option just to try out something new, something that you haven't expected. Grab yourself a Callum Ritchie and see what he can accomplish with mighty juggernaut Casey Middlestat in the middle of his line. All right, and you mentioned Devon Toews is day-to-day. Hopefully back soon, obviously, for anyone who is rostering a Colorado goalie still. And Justus Annunen, although he hasn't been great, could potentially be an option. We already heard Bednar saying he wanted to give him some extra games this season. Especially with Georgiev's performance, not that Annunen has been great, but might open the door for him a little bit.
Very interesting. I would look at Annunen as a fun stream, someone you can cheer for, kind of get behind.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Over to Utah. We had another injury. This one looks pretty bad. I didn't see it, but it is an upper body injury of some kind. Sean Dursey, uh, according to the coach, is out for the foreseeable future. So that's not a great run considering, the schedule is all printed. So I would argue that you can foresee the vast majority of the future, but I'm not going to argue with the coach on his, I'm not going to have a semantic argument here. Yusuf Alamaki took over power play 2. So far in the season, he's pointless in 4. He's got 2 shots, 1 hit, 7 blocks. I don't know, rosterable guy for you if he's going to be filling in the Dursey spot. We saw him do a little bit with some power play time in Arizona last year. Is this someone who interests you with Dursey's absence? I guess that we would have to be talking in a fairly deep league here if we're talking about a Utah power play 2 defenseman.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're in a deep league, he's definitely interesting. They're going to be putting that pressure on Valimaki to step up, kind of take on that role. I know you have Dursey, so I hate to say it, but he was seen with a sling on, so I don't know that he's going to be back this week. Might be a little while. That foreseeable future could be a couple weeks out for you, but hopefully it's soon. I know they've called up Robert Bortuzzo as well. I'm not super interested in those guys though. So yeah, unless you're in a deep league, I'm kind of just moving away from the Utah and looking for somebody else.
Yeah, I didn't see that as being particularly appealing. I picked up Travis Sanheim since he is going to get me some games this week, and they have a 4-game schedule next week. So that's a much more like boring, high floor, low ceiling pick. But I got some good advice from Elon about, I can do a little bit of planning for the now and a little bit of planning for the future. And yeah, with half of my drafted defense on the IR, don't have a ton of choice there. Anyhow, even if I wanted to do something a little bit different. All right, and then a couple little smaller notes here. I'll try and just be quick. We had kind of a mini injury, not even really an injury. William Nylander was out with illness. Apparently, it's going around the Leafs locker room. He has not been confirmed to be in for the next game, so keep an eye on that. He may miss another one. And then we had some incoming outjuries, but they didn't materialize. Like I said, I was hoping Joel Eriksson Ek would be back today. He's been out with a broken nose that he suffered from taking an elbow. Since he's out today, I would assume that, especially the way they were kind of talking about him, that he might be a likely return for Saturday. So fingers crossed there for the Jeek owners. Joseph Woll is improving. There's a good chance that he skates with the team tomorrow, which means he may be on his way to a bit of recovery here. And then Lindy Ruff said JJ Peterka felt good at practice and Ruff hopes that JJP will be able to play tomorrow. So that would be exciting. Just in the interest of keeping track of our little contest here, Brian has called Alex Laferriere Peterka West. So he is in the lead right now. He got 2 goals in that big game. It'll be interesting to see how they play out. I just covered all my bases. I got, I bet on both sides of the East Coast, West Coast feud with Peterka and Laferriere. I keep wanting to say Lafreniere every time.
Right.
I will eventually get over that, I'm sure. But yeah,
I'm
nice
excited
start
to see
for
Peterka
Laferriere.
come back.
Yeah.
I think he's got a lot to show us. I'm sad I didn't get to draft him in any of my leagues, but I honestly, I think he's going to have a great season. So jealous of everybody who's got him.
I hope so. I hate that he took a concussion so early. I really hope that it's not the kind of thing that lingers and causes him trouble. I could see that being something that interferes with his ability to play his best. But I hope you're right. I hope that he is on track for a really exciting season here. I got to make an edit note here, 2854. I had something to say, but I lost it, so I don't know if it's worth trying to remember what I was going to bring up. Nope. All right. We'll go to an ad break here, and then we'll do hot and cold streaks.
Sounds good.
All right. So hopefully some good news on the horizon for those players. We're going to take a quick little break here, You're listening to Short Shifts. All right. How are we feeling?
Good.
Good. Yeah, I think it's going really well. I'm super pleased. You're a natural. Very smooth. Very. Yeah, it's great. Okay, so let's see here. For hot and colds, do you want to go back and forth at all? I can just into the private chat. I can cut and paste my notes about some of these players if you want.
Sure, and
That
then
might
I'll
be a
see.
fun way just to get you a little extra airtime.
Sure, I've got notes on a few, so I can kind of see which ones I already know about too.
Okay. Here's my Nason and Casey stuff. If you want to do Nason, I can do Casey. I want to do Casey because he's a Michigan guy.
Okay.
So this is what I had for Nason. And then, so you can do Nason, I'll do Casey. You do Beniers, I'll do Kastelik. Does that sound okay? I'll give you my Beniers notes also.
Okay, I was gonna say I have Kastelik notes, but I don't have Beniers, so okay.
Okay. All right. Ready to go to the other side here?
Ready to go.
Welcome back to Short Shifts. Elizabeth, let's get on to some hot and cold streaks and get ourselves out of here for the evening. And I think we want to start in New Jersey with some players that have some availability. Tell us about a couple, or take the first hot hand in New Jersey, and I'll take the second.
Sounds good. I'm going to take Stefan Newson from you. I'm probably saying that wrong, so apologies in advance.
Yeah, I think that's one of those German OEs is like an A sound, like Nason, but
Nason,
it's always tough.
I'm just going to blame it on my Alberta accent. All right, so he's looking pretty good. He's had 2 goals, 4 assists in about 5 games here. My concern is going to be if he stops getting those points, but right now he's looking good. He's just not a huge peripheral beast. So looking at the game against Toronto where he didn't get any points, it just wasn't as good. He only had the 2 hits. So just really going to watch him, but I think it's exciting. I would watch it. I would definitely take him. I'd watch him. I'm on board. I'm here for New Jersey. They've got a bigger sample size, like you said. And I think they've got a couple of players who are going to surprise us this year.
Yeah, I guess when you have a team with as much forward depth as New Jersey, you can shake up the lines on occasion if need be. He is playing with early season superstar Paul Cotter and Eric Halla, who are not nothing certainly.
He's getting a peek at power play 1 too, so I don't think he'll hold it. I think Myers will fight for it back, but I mean he's getting that peak. I mean it's worth looking at.
Yeah, it was just a shift or two, but the fact that he was the one who was kind of next man up, I think bodes pretty well for him. So yeah, especially if there's an injury and if he gets a chance to move up maybe into that top 6. Nason is a guy that I'm not necessarily rushing out to add, but I definitely have him starred on my watch list because he is quite an interesting option there. And then we've got Seamus Casey, rookie out of University of Michigan. So he had a bit of a pedestrian debut, just a couple hits and a block, I believe. But in the last 4 games, not counting Tuesday night here, 3 goals and 1 assist for 4 points in those 4 games. He's doing this despite really limited ice time. His highest mark has been 14 minutes and 9 seconds, and his lowest has been under 10. But he has been getting some power play 2 time while Luke Hughes has been absent, and that's been where he's found the majority of his success. The low ice time and the low shots with the high shooting percentage kind of scared me away from him this week. When I needed a D-man, he did get a goal and an assist in the last game, although I think Tuesdays has gone final without Casey getting in on the action. So I was feeling a little bit of regret, but I think overall I'm going to remain a non-believer here until I start to see that ice time and the shots increase. I know this is setting me up to potentially be in a position to miss out on an opportunity. But, I think if he is a guy that, doesn't have the coach's trust enough to get, at least 18 minutes a game until such time, I think I'm going to be staying away from him.
I did the opposite of you. I rushed out and grabbed Casey. And I'm pretty happy about it right now. But I want to point out I only had somebody out sick, so it's just a short-term fill-in. It's not a long-term thing. So I decided to take the gamble. I'm not usually big on these kind of guys, but I thought it would be fun for the week.
Honestly, as someone who drafted Adam Boquist intentionally, maybe I should be looking at the Seamus Casey's. Maybe I should be looking at every potential, lottery ticket I can find on the blue line, because I'm going to need to fill in these slots. Right now, besides the guys I drafted, my survivors, Rasmus Dahlin and Adam Boquist, I have Marcus Pettersson and Travis Sanheim. Not exactly the most thrilling boys to play with, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right. We did kind of mention some cold streaks with Crosby and Giroux, but we got a question in the Discord from a patron who was asking about permission to drop Matty Beniers in Cupful. I think we can probably talk about whether Beniers is a drop across multiple formats. But what do you think? This is a guy who's off to quite the slow start. Do you see a chance of recovery for him? Is this, are we going to, at the end of this, are we going to give permission to our patron friend to potentially drop this guy?
I don't think I could give permission to drop him just yet. I mean, I know it's a slow start, but we're seeing so many of these superstars have these slow starts this year. I think if you give it time, it will turn around. When we're talking about the Kraken, they kind of play their lines a little bit differently than a lot of other teams do. So I think when we're talking about low ice time or anything like that, and I mean low 18 minutes, still pretty good. He's somebody that you want on your team. He's somebody to cheer for. I don't think I could drop him yet. If you're thinking about dropping him, maybe see if somebody in your league is interested in a trade would be my suggestion over a drop. I think there's still a lot of value there and you could get something for him.
Yeah, and I mean, he's still shooting, right? He's shooting about 3 times a game, at least. Again, not counting Tuesday's results here. Still getting line 1, power play 1 to the extent those are a thing in Seattle. With apologies to my friend and oftentimes podcasting partner Jeremy Versillo. But yeah, I think this is a Kraken team that's not loaded with stars. I think they're going to have to rely on Beniers, at least to a certain extent. A frustrating hold, but I think a hold in my book. I think you got to wait until he at least breaks through and scores a little bit before you start thinking about moving him, unless you can find someone who thinks that they are swindling you, and maybe you think that the person they're offering you is actually, a secret genius move. But yeah, I think I'm sitting on him because I don't see him having equivalent value in this very short sort of bit of time that they've had.
Yeah, and I don't think the Kraken have a lot of options. So I think they're going to put that pressure on him to start producing a little bit more, whether that's increasing those shots or just making sure those shots are landing. He's going to have to do something.
Yeah, and I think that ice time is unlikely to go too far because it just, again, I know it's a little bit of a messy muddle there, but you can afford to have a lot of forwards between 16 and 18 minutes if you're not going to have anybody climb too far above. All right, we got one more. This one's mostly just for fun, but we do have Mark Kastelik. I have no idea, again, if we're pronouncing that one right. Sorry. But 2 goals, 3 assists, 4 shots in 4 games. So obviously shooting 50%, not ideal. But what I love is the 19 hits. And he also has 5 blocks in those 4 games. He's only playing 10 to 11 minutes a night. But I was thinking to our listeners who are in categories leagues, this is a guy who's put together a mini scoring streak here. Maybe Boston is in a position to kind of give him a little more ice time. He's on line 3 or 4 with John Beecher and Cole Koepke, depending on how you kind of view the Trent Frederick, Justin Brazeau, Matt Poitras line. But actually the Beecher, Koepke, Kastelik line had the second most even strength time on ice behind line 1. You did have a couple lines that had Marchand stuck onto them that maybe added up to a few more seconds, but decent even strength time and given a lot of leash here by the coaches. So if you are in a Cats league and you're looking to get some hits, he's putting up almost 5 hits a game. To give you a block along the way and, is scoring to boot. I think this is definitely a guy that I would add in the short term, at least, at least for those hits to help you catch up in that category or continue your dominance in that category, whatever your strategy might be, and hold him as long as he is being productive for you. If you see a benefit from someone who's going to get some hits and is on a bit of a scoring streak right now.
Absolutely. If anybody is listening and they're in a bangers league, this is definitely somebody to check out. You already mentioned, but 5 hits a game, that's nothing to sneeze at. That should be something we're all looking at and saying, what are we doing here? When I'm playing in those bangers leagues, sometimes it's easy to forget that those things add up, but they certainly do. And like 5 hits, I will take that any night from any player, but if you're doing it regularly, that's great. He's also scoring right now, so you're going to ride a hot hand for a little bit. Or getting those points, I should say, not necessarily scoring all of them, but you're riding that hot hand and it's going to go far for you. If I'm in a deep or even mid-tier bangers league, I'm all over this right now. And I was very interested. I was looking last night even for the cupful to see if I wanted him there. So I definitely think there'll be a lot of interest in him going forward.
Definitely. I like making sure that we kind of cover all our bases and get some things for our Cats League players and our non-cupful people. I think that's a nice option for you there. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much. It's been an absolute blast. I have loved having the opportunity to chat with you here, and I hope the listeners have enjoyed it as well, both those watching live on YouTube and those who are listening to the podcast. Thanks everybody for joining us. Please make sure to download. Please sure to give us a follow at Short Shifts Pod on Blue Sky. You can find Brian and Elon at Keeping Karlsson on Twitter. You can use GameDayTweets.com to get all the best info from Twitter without having to slog through the site yourself, including team by team and searchable tweets by player name. Visit that site and all the great sites we use to research our episodes at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, ShiftChart.com, Icy Data, and Natural Stat Trick. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short. Ooh.
Yay.
All right. That was great. I thought we had really good flow. I think a lot of interesting discussion. We disagreed in a few spots, which is awesome. I find
can happen
too frequently, like me and Shams are just like, yeah, that's a great idea. Yup, buddy. All right. Hey, thanks everybody who's in the lobby. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream, but we will see you on the Discord here. Let's head back to the studio.